Trump's trade war with Canada is falling apart, and it's worse than anyone thought. While the world watches Trump's latest diplomatic disaster unfold, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney just walked into the White House and exposed the president's economic incompetence for all to see. We're talking about a meeting that was supposed to showcase Trump's negotiating prowess, but instead revealed a desperate president scrambling to clean up his own mess. It's not just embarrassing, it's a complete strategic failure. So what exactly happened behind closed doors? And why is Trump, of all people, suddenly begging for Canada's cooperation? To understand this spectacular collapse, we need to rewind to how Trump's trade war began and why it's now backfiring catastrophically. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney made his second visit to the White House in just 5 months, and the optics couldn't be worse for Trump.
No one will be speeding, 100%.
But Premier,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
On marine land, it
Yes.
seems like things are coming to a head today. The company has said that they might have to euthanize the whales if they don't get some more money from the federal government to help care for them. Are you going to do anything about that situation?
Well, again, this is marine land is privately owned. Now the federal government declined a permit to move them and allow these whales to live a better life. And I would recommend to the federal government, reverse your decision and let's find a home that would be great for the whales.
I don't think there are any existing homes that could take them other than the one in China. So what is the solution here? Can the government step in here and seize them or do something?
Well, we have our inspectors that go in and inspect the whales all the time. It was the federal government that allowed them to bring these whales here. It should be the federal government that allows them to move them to China or other marine areas that will take them. But saying no to everything and not coming up with a solution, not a great suggestion.
Actual legislation instead of the directives we have in place right now to buy Canadian, buy Ontario. Do you have any specifics on that? Is this coming next fall? What exactly happening?
We will be putting legislation in October that we are requiring municipalities and the provincial government, and I understand the federal government's doing the same, that when possible, I always say when possible, certain widgets can't be made, but when possible.
Here's a president who campaigned on being the ultimate dealmaker, yet he's been unable to secure even basic trade agreements with America's closest ally and largest trading partner. The meeting on Tuesday was supposed to be Trump's moment to show strength, but instead it revealed a leader desperately trying to salvage relationships he's systematically destroyed. Trump's tariff regime has been an unmitigated disaster for both countries. The president slapped steep tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, automobiles, and lumber, key sectors that form the backbone of Canada-US trade relations. But here's what Trump didn't anticipate. These tariffs aren't just hurting Canada, they're devastating American consumers and businesses too. Canadian tourism to the United States has declined sharply. American stores have pulled Canadian products from their shelves, and the economic relationship that took decades to build is crumbling. The numbers tell the story of Trump's failure. More than 77% of Canada's exports go to the United States, making this relationship critical for both nations. Yet Trump's ham-fisted approach has pushed Canada's unemployment rate to 7.1%, the highest level in 9 years. But Trump's own economic advisors know that American businesses are suffering just as much, forced to pay higher prices for raw materials and facing supply chain disruptions that were entirely avoidable. What makes this even more pathetic is Trump's obvious desperation during the meeting. Sitting next to Carney in the Oval Office, Trump gushed about their relationship in a way that screamed weakness rather than strength.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's an honor to have the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who I have made very popular. He's an extremely popular Prime Minister, and I'm very honored to do it because I liked him. Right from the beginning, I've liked him, and we've had a good relationship. We have some natural conflict, but we will probably work that out. But we've had a very strong relationship, and your hosting of the various countries that showed up, that was a beautiful job you did, and I appreciate it very much. We're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We'll certainly be talking about Gaza. We're in very serious negotiations to I guess you could say, depending on the way you count, 3,000 years. You could say 500 years. You could say, but that it's been raging for a long time. And I think there's a possibility that we could have peace in the Middle East. It's something even beyond the Gaza situation. We want a release of the hostages immediately, etc. And so our team is over there now. Another team just left, and other countries, literally every country in the world has supported the plan.
Yep.
I don't think there's anybody that hasn't, actually, not that I've seen. But there's a real chance that we could do something, so you may have some questions on that later. But in the meantime, we'll spend some time and we'll make some deals and we'll do some things that are good for both of our countries. And Mark, it's an honor to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I may, you kindly hosted me and some of my colleagues a few months ago, and I said at the time, you are a transformative president. And since then, the transformation in the economy, unprecedented commitments of NATO partners to defense spending, peace from India, Pakistan through to Azerbaijan, Armenia.
He told reporters he liked Carney from the beginning and that they have a good relationship, but then immediately contradicted himself by saying they have natural conflict. This isn't the language of a confident negotiator. It's the rambling of someone who knows he's in over his head. Trump's praise for Carney was particularly telling. He described the Canadian Prime Minister as a world-class leader and a tough negotiator, essentially admitting that he's outmatched at the negotiating table. This is the same Trump who spent years attacking Carney's predecessor, Justin Trudeau, calling him weak and ineffective. Now he's singing a completely different tune because he knows he needs Canada more than Canada needs him. The contrast between Carney's professional approach and Trump's chaotic style was stark. While Trump rambled through various topics during their public appearance, Carney remained focused on the substantive issues at hand. The Canadian Prime Minister came prepared with specific proposals and concrete solutions, while Trump seemed to wing it with his usual mix of bluster and empty promises. But here's where Trump's strategy gets really desperate. During their first meeting in May, Trump immediately brought up his bizarre annexation fantasies, suggesting that Canada should become the 51st state. Carney shut him down immediately, telling Trump that Canada is not for sale and never will be. Instead of backing down, Trump doubled down on this delusional thinking, showing just how out of touch he is with geopolitical realities. Since that humiliating rejection, Carney has been making strategic moves that expose Trump's weakness. The Prime Minister has dropped some counter tariffs and scrapped a digital services tax aimed at U.S. tech companies. Not because Trump forced him to, but as calculated concessions designed to put pressure on the American president to reciprocate. It's a masterclass in diplomatic chess, and Trump is playing checkers. He thought he could bully Canada into submission with tariffs and threats.
When it comes to trade, the United States was always giving everything. They gave everything to Canada. They would, let car companies leave here and go to Canada. But that hurts the United States. And, other presidents didn't see that. They weren't business oriented. They might have been good politicians in some cases, not in all cases. They were bad at both.
But instead, he's created a situation where he needs Canada more than ever. What started as an attempt to show strength has devolved into desperate damage control, with Trump now reduced to pleading for Canada's cooperation rather than commanding it. The economic data reveals the true extent of Trump's failure. While the majority of Canada's exports are still entering the U.S. tariff-free under the existing trade agreement, Trump's sector-specific tariffs are having a devastating impact. There are 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, for example, which are crushing both Canadian exporters and American manufacturers who depend on these materials. Former Alberta Premier Jason Kenney has been particularly critical of how this negotiation has played out, describing it as, and I quote, "I'll give on the Canadian side, I'll take on the U.S. side."
Well, I don't think it's unfair given the Prime Minister's own commitments and standards. He said he was going to have a comprehensive deal with the United States within 90 days, and so far we have nothing. But Canada has given up on various tariffs. Canada's given President Trump what he demanded in terms of its defense expenditures, repealing the digital services tax. So it has been, on the Canadian side, all give, on the U.S. side, all take. That's not exactly the elbows up, aggressive, assertive approach that the Prime Minister ran on. Now, maybe he's come to conclude that that approach simply wasn't going to work at the present. But I think he should be forthcoming with Canadians about that.
We did hear Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc say this afternoon that the talks were more detailed than before, that the leaders want the conversation to continue, and he was using terms like successful and positive and substantial progress and momentum. What do you think Canadians should take from that?
This isn't the elbows-up, aggressive, assertive approach that was promised. Instead, Canada has given up various tariffs, met Trump's demands on defense spending and digital services tax while getting nothing concrete in return. The U.S. exports more to Canada than anywhere else in the world.
To Canada than anywhere in the entire world. And it sounds great with the Americans until they start seeing inflation. We've seen inflation down in the U.S. I just came back from a meeting in Quebec with 2 governors. They're seeing inflation. We're seeing it in sectors. The auto sector, they're going to see an increase of over $107 billion. Other companies are seeing it. John Deere, they're laying over 280 people off because of tariffs. We're seeing it across every single sector. So it's time to sit down, let's get a deal, or let's start hitting back.
Premier, are you advocating the approach that Prime Minister Trudeau had more than the approach that Prime Minister Carney had? Trudeau, of course, imposed counter tariffs, and it didn't work. But you think we should go back to the Trudeau approach?
Yet Trump's tariffs are creating inflation concerns, auto sector impacts worth $107 billion in increased costs, and job losses at companies like John Deere. F-150 trucks, popular with Trump's own base, will cost $7,000 more due to Canadian aluminum tariffs. This inflation will create frustration among Trump's supporters and could impact the 2026 midterm elections. Canadian government officials and analysts have been playing down the chances of any immediate trade deal with Trump, and for good reason. They know they're dealing with an unpredictable president who changes his mind constantly and has no coherent trade strategy. The mere fact that discussions are continuing is being considered a success for Carney, which says everything about how low expectations have fallen for Trump's negotiating abilities. Trump's handling of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement review, which is scheduled for next year, has been equally incompetent. This is a critical agreement that underpins North American trade relationships, but Trump has been using it as a political football rather than treating it with the seriousness it deserves. He's suggested they could renegotiate it or seek different deals, showing he doesn't understand the complex interdependencies involved. The president's fondness for Carney, which he didn't display toward Trudeau, reveals another troubling pattern. Trump's foreign policy seems to be based on personal relationships and petty grievances rather than national interests. He attacked Trudeau relentlessly, calling him dishonest and weak, but now he's praising Carney because the Canadian Prime Minister has learned how to manage Trump's ego. This ego management strategy is working, but it's also exposing Trump's fundamental weakness as a leader. During their meeting, Trump told reporters that Canada will walk away very happy and that the people of Canada will love us again. This isn't the language of strength. It's the desperate pleading of someone who knows he's damaged a crucial relationship and is trying to repair it without admitting fault. Ontario Premier. Doug Ford has been particularly vocal about the situation, stating bluntly, "The way to create more jobs is make a deal with Canada."
The success or lack thereof of today's meeting.
Bashi, thanks so much for all of that. I know you've got your radio program coming up. Again, we appreciate your time with us, and we're watching this shot in the corner of our screens. We've just heard from Premier Doug Ford, who was speaking about the meeting. Let's listen.
The auto sector, they're going to see an increase of over $107 billion. Other companies are seeing it. John Deere, they're laying over 280 people off because of tariffs. We're seeing it across every single sector. So it's time to sit down, let's get a deal, or let's start hitting back.
Premier, are you advocating the approach that Prime Minister Trudeau had more than the approach that Prime Minister Carney had? Trudeau, of course, imposed counter tariffs, and it didn't work. But you think we should go back to the Trudeau approach?
Well, I think we take an approach that let's get a deal. If the Americans want to see inflation stop, you make a deal with Canada. You want to see the economy grow, make a deal with Canada. That's what we need to do, because it will hurt both countries if we don't. But you sure don't sit back and get beat up by a bully every single day. It's like a kid going to the schoolyard and getting punched in the face every day. It's time to hit back if he can't get a deal. Maybe Prime Minister Carney knows something I don't know. And if that's the case, he should sit down with the premiers and explain that. That's what he needs to do.
Cut off the power back on the table.
Hydro surcharges, and then you pulled those off the table.
That's right.
Are you willing to do that? Is Ontario going to hit back?
Well, what we need to do is use that energy to be more competitive. If he wants to shut down every single industry, President Trump, we're going to need the energy. We're giving the U.S. energy at extremely low cost. We're keeping 1.5 million lights on and businesses open in New York and Michigan and Minnesota, and I know other provinces are doing the same thing. Let's start giving it to our manufacturers.
The way to reduce inflation is make a deal with Canada. He's compared the situation to a kid going to the schoolyard and getting punched in the face every day, arguing that Canada needs to either get a deal or hit back against what he calls bullying tactics. By late afternoon after their meeting, it became clear that no deal was in hand despite Trump's earlier optimistic rhetoric. Carney didn't even hold his own press conference, instead sending out his trade minister to report that talks are still ongoing and there has been substantial progress. This careful approach shows that Canada is managing Trump rather than being intimidated by him. The broader implications of Trump's trade war failure extend far beyond Canada. Other allies are watching how he handles this relationship and drawing their own conclusions about American reliability. When Trump calls long-standing trade relationships into question based on his personal whims, it undermines American credibility on the global stage. Trump's threat to impose additional tariffs on lumber imports shows he still doesn't understand the interconnected nature of North American supply chains. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, they represent real jobs, real families, and real communities on both sides of the border. His cavalier approach to trade policy is causing genuine economic hardship that could take years to repair. The meeting also highlighted Trump's tendency to make promises he can't keep. He said the U.S. will treat Canada fairly in any trade deal, but didn't provide any specifics about what that means. This vague rhetoric has become Trump's signature move. Big promises followed by little action, leaving everyone confused about his actual intentions. Canada's response to Trump's trade aggression has been measured and strategic. Rather than escalating the conflict, Carney has pursued closer relations with other Western countries, courting the UK and France, and collaborating with Australia on new defense projects. This diversification strategy reduces Canada's dependence on the U.S. market and gives them more leverage in negotiations with Trump. The fact that Trump is now talking about love and mutual respect shows how completely his initial strategy has failed. He thought he could bully Canada into submission, but instead he's created a situation where he needs Canada more than ever. The economic interdependence he tried to weaponize has become his own weakness. Looking ahead, the review of the trade agreement next year will be a crucial test of Trump's leadership. If he continues with his chaotic approach, he risks unraveling decades of economic integration that has benefited both countries enormously. But if he's learned anything from this experience, he might finally recognize that successful trade relationships require mutual respect and consistent policy, two things his administration has struggled to provide. The broader lesson here is that Trump's transactional approach to international relations is fundamentally flawed. You can't treat long-standing allies like adversaries and expect them to cooperate when you need them. Carney's professional handling of these negotiations shows what real leadership looks like, and the contrast with Trump's erratic behavior couldn't be more stark. Trump's trade war with Canada has been a masterclass in how not to conduct international relations. What started as an attempt to show strength has devolved into desperate damage control, with Trump now reduced to pleading for Canada's cooperation rather than commanding it. The president who promised to make America great again has instead made it less trusted, less predictable, and less influential on the world stage. And as Mark Carney walked out of the White House without giving Trump the deal he desperately needed, it became clear that the art of the deal might be beyond this president's capabilities after all.